Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Village Board meeting of March 22nd. Please join us on our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, Mrs. Thomas.
Trustee Purcell.
Here.
Trustee Baloo. Here. Trustee Washington.
Here.
Trustee Harris Jones.
Here.
Trustee Hyperman.
Here.
Trustee Roman.
Here.
President Hopewell.
Here. Representing staff this evening to the audience is our Finance Director, Dennis Bubenek, Police Chief, Denise McGrath, Public Works Director, John Schaefer, Village Attorney, Chris Cummings, Assistant Village Manager, Justine Bruno, and our Village Manager, Napoleon Haney. The minutes of March 8th. Any additions or corrections? Trustee Purcell.
Not here.
Trustee Bull.
Nothing.
Trustee Washington.
No.
Trustee Harris Jones.
None here.
Trustee Hyperman. And Trustee Roman.
Nothing.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
So, second.
Been moved by Trustee Washington, seconded by Trustee Purcell. Roll call, please.
Trustee Purcell.
Aye.
Trustee Baloo.
Aye.
Trustee Washington.
Aye.
Trustee Harris Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Hyperman.
Aye.
Trustee Roman.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. The claims list in the amount of $326,769.09. Again, Trustee Purcell. Trustee Baloo. Trustee Washington.
Nothing.
Trustee Harris
All
Jones.
good.
Trustee Hyperman.
Hey, no questions.
Trustee Roman.
No questions.
May I have a motion to approve the claims list, please?
So moved. Second.
Been moved by Trustee Roman, seconded by Trustee Harris Jones. Roll call, please.
Trustee Baloo. Pardon me. Trustee Purcell.
Aye.
Trustee Baloo.
Aye.
Trustee Washington.
Aye.
Trustee Harris Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Hyperman.
Aye.
Trustee Roman.
Aye.
Claims list is approved. Of that almost $327,000, two purchases comprise better than 1/3 of that list. Our salt purchases were $41,000, and our payment of Thorn Creek Sanitary District for treatment of sewage was $85,000. That amounted to $126,000, or 39% of that claims list. Hear from the audience. If anyone in the audience would like to address the board on any subject not on the agenda, please raise your hand. Yes, ma'am. Sure. Wherever you're most comfortable.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Katie Kelly, and I am from Bloom Township Center, and I am the co-chair for the Wall That Heals project. In 1982, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, or VVMF, had dedicated the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. Since its dedication, it has become one of the most visited memorials on the National Mall, with over 5 million visits each year. Yet millions of others still are unable to see the wall in Washington, D.C. Shortly after the wall's dedication, the first traveling version began touring the country. In 1996, VVMF recognized the need to provide a traveling version of the memorial, and the Wall That Heals was dedicated. Supervisor TJ Summer and the Bloom Township Trustees are pleased to announce that we will be hosting the Wall That Heals, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial at Marion Catholic High School, July 7th through July 10th. This is the 27th season of the Wall That Heals, and it begins March 24th in Mississippi and will visit 29 communities, including ours. The week kicks off July 5th with an escort throughout our township streets. On July 6th, we'll set up the Wall That Heals begins, and from there, our exciting week of welcoming visitors, ceremonies, and history takes place. On the day of the arrival, the truck will be escorted by motorcycles and first responders, if available, by our 12 communities. We will land at Marion Catholic High School, where it will be on display for the week. We will have honor points throughout our towns for the public to welcome the truck during the escort. At the time of the arrival at Marion on Tuesday afternoon, visitors from near and far will be able to welcome the riders and thank them for escorting the wall into our community. When the exhibit arrives, it will be carried within a 51-foot commercial trailer hauled by a full-size tractor truck. The trailer is 13.5 feet tall and 51 feet long and weighs in over 70,000 pounds. The trailer is comprised of several exhibits and displays. On the front portion of the driver's side, there is a timeline of the war and the wall. Following that are 3 displays. The first is a digital display titled Hometown Heroes that contains a 6-foot monitor. This monitor provides a rotation of the names and photographs of those casualties on the wall with a home of record from the nearby communities. The second is a digital display that contains a 6-foot television monitor showing those from the state who have been honored in the VVMF In Memory program. The third contains examples of some of the 400,000 items left behind at the wall in Washington, D.C. On Wednesday, July 6th, setup will begin at 8 a.m. and should finish around 2 p.m. Once setup is done, the Wall That Heals will be open for 24 hours a day until Sunday, July 10th at 2 p.m. Visitors can come from any and all of our neighboring communities and throughout the state to pay respect to our fallen soldiers and veterans. Throughout the week, we will be looking for volunteers to help with setup, breakdown, and shifts throughout a 24-hour period from Wednesday afternoon until Sunday at 2 p.m. We will need 30 to 35 able-bodied volunteers to help with setup and breakdown, and we're looking for at least 32 volunteers each day to cover shifts throughout the daily 24-hour periods, rain or shine. We are also looking for first responders to escort the truck into our community on July 5th, and for volunteer shifts to assist with the protection over the Wall That Heals. In the upcoming weeks, Bishop Ronnie White and I will be coming to discuss the routes with each of our towns and our communities to make sure that we keep our citizens safe during this escort. We will make sure that you are up to date on any additional information, and we ask that you help us get the word out. We will have flyers, postcards, and banners within the next month. I did bring some tonight. If you have any questions or would like to volunteer or know of anyone that is a hometown hero or should be in the In Memory program, please contact me at Bloom Township or follow us on our Facebook page, The Wall That Heals, Bloom Township. We at Bloom Township are looking for our 12 communities to unite and make this a memorable experience for all. Thank you.
Thank you, and please be in contact with our village manager. We'll be glad to participate, and we'll have our Veterans Committee get involved as well.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board this evening on any subject not on the agenda? All right. At this time, may I have a motion to approve the appointment of Julie Willis to the Appearance Commission?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Trustee Roman, seconded by Trustee Purcell. Roll call, please.
Trustee Purcell. Aye. Trustee Baloo. Aye. Trustee Washington. Aye. Trustee Harris Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Hyperman.
Aye.
Trustee Roman.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Julie, would you please come up and be sworn in?
I state your name.
I, Julie Willis,
Having been appointed to
having been appointed to
the Appearance Commission
the Appearance Commission
for the Village of Homewood,
for the Village of Homewood,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the municipal ordinances of the Village of Homewood,
and the municipal ordinances of the Village of Homewood,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office on the Appearance Commission
the duties of my office on the Appearance Commission
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations.
And may I also have a motion to reappoint Mario Planera to the Plan Commission Zone Board, please?
So moved. I mean, motion. Second. Or yes, so moved, whatever. Second.
It's been moved by Trustee Roman, seconded by Trustee Harris Jones. Roll call, please.
Trustee Purcell.
Aye.
Trustee Baloo.
Aye.
Trustee Washington.
Aye.
Trustee Harris Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Hyperman.
Aye.
Trustee Roman.
Aye.
The reappointment is approved. Mrs. Thomas, the omnibus vote.
The board is asked to waive competitive bidding for an emergency purchase of two 2021 Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicles from DeRazzo Ford in the amount of $74,115 and $24,000 for additional equipment. Homewood has two squads that were designated for replacement in this budget cycle. Due to parts shortages, it is becoming more difficult to find these cars. None was available through the state purchase option. The board is asked to approve Resolution R 3103, a supplemental resolution appropriating an additional $120,000 of motor fuel tax funds to fully fund the low bid award of the 2022 Rebuild Illinois Bond Resurfacing Program. This $120,000 is in addition to the $848,000 of Rebuild Illinois bond funds allocated for the 9 street sections designated for resurfacing this year. The board is asked to award a bid for the 2022 Rebuild Illinois Street Resurfacing Program to K5 Construction Corporation of Westmont, Illinois, the lowest responsible bidder, in an amount not to exceed $956,921.03.
Thank you. Any comments or questions with regard to these matters? Trustee Purcell? Trustee Baloo? Trustee Washington?
Nothing.
Trustee Harris-Jones?
Nothing for me.
Trustee Heiferman?
Item A, I think it's great that we're keeping our fleet up while sourcing vehicles that seem to be unavailable, and it's a good thing.
Trustee Roman?
Nothing.
I have a motion to approve those items on the consent agenda, please.
So moved. Second.
And moved by Trustee Purcell, seconded by Trustee Baloo. Roll call, please.
Trustee Purcell?
Aye.
Trustee Baloo?
Aye.
Trustee Washington?
Aye.
Trustee Harris-Jones?
Aye.
Trustee Heiferman?
Aye.
Trustee Roman?
Aye.
The consent agenda is approved. Old business, 183rd Street traffic study, Mr. Schaefer.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees. Tonight we're here to discuss the 183rd Street traffic study that we've discussed a couple times and come up with some options to possibly implement. I take it that a lot of the people here in the audience are here for 183rd Street traffic situation, and I really appreciate you coming out, because that's what we look for, the citizens' input when we do these things. So in the spring of 2021, Burns McDonald was directed by the village to undertake a study of potential improvements to 183rd Street in the village of Homewood. Project limits were the intersection of Park Avenue on the west and Halsey Street to the east, distance of 1.83 miles. In December of 2021, the findings of the study were presented by Burns and McDonald to the village board, including a comprehensive list of recommendations for the village staff to review. Village staff concluded its review of the Burns and McDonald list of the mitigation concepts and recommendations, and recommends further evaluation and costing of the following phases and options to the village board. Pull up the first one. First one that we're considering is what we call a road diet. Now, a road diet, we would be taking 183rd Street from Regal Road to approximately Morgan and reducing it as a pilot program. This would be for a 2-week period to see how traffic is going to handle this road diet. And we would take the 4 lanes and make them into 2 lanes, 1 lane eastbound, 1 lane westbound, with a center turn lane for left-hand turns. We want to do this right beginning of May if possible. It'd be for a 2-week period. We'd send letters out to the residents along 183rd in this pilot program to let them know, what's happening. We would do this with barrels. We would put barrels out on the street to actually make that into a 1 lane each direction with a turn lane. If this is successful, we would look at permanently striping this. And it would also include a bike lane. I am not.
On each side?
Yes,
On each side.
correct. And the reason we want to do this pilot is because I'm not completely myself sure that this is going to work feasible for 183rd Street because of the traffic volume. We're taking 4 lanes basically lanes shrinking down to 2. We also have the stoplight at 183rd and Aberdeen to consider. We've got the schools, so we're going to actually take traffic counts before we set up the barrels and do the lane configuration. We'll do that traffic counts on 183rd. We're going to do traffic counts on Ridge Road and traffic counts on 187th. Before we set it up, then we'll set the barrels up. We'll see how traffic flows. We'll also be taking traffic counts again on same streets to see if the volume changes much, if the speeds change at all, you know, if that traffic from 183rd is then pushed out to 187th or Ridge Road. From that, if it is successful and it looks, looks promising, we can then look to do a permanent striping of that configuration. The concerns we do have are, is that really going to slow traffic down? It may, just because of the volume going from 2 lanes in one direction down to 1 lane, or is it going to create really traffic backups? And that's what we want to really see what's going to happen with that. The other concern is the residents that live on 183rd Street, they may be able to get into their driveways okay because of the center turn lane, but it's getting out of their driveways. We want to see if it's going to be very difficult, being now that it's only going to be 1 lane. And that's what we want to prove out before we do a permanent restriping of this road segment. Happy to answer any questions the board may have on this first.
Why don't you go through them all and then we'll take them, Jeff?
All right. The next option that we want to look at is Gottschalk at 183rd Street for the north side of 183rd. Currently, it's a 2-way street. The left and right-hand turns are allowed to come out of Gottschalk onto 183rd. There has been some incidents there with traffic accidents, also a fatality that we had there. We'd like to meet with the residents on that block because there's 2 options we'd like them to consider. One would be actually creating a 1-way street northbound only, so you'd only be able to turn, make a left-hand turn on the Gottschalk. You could only be able to travel north up to Olive. The other consideration is making, Justine, if you want to flip flip to the next one. That shows the northbound traffic flow from 183rd to Olive, and then from Olive it would be two-way traffic again. Then the other consideration would be to, at 183rd in Gottschalk, make that, create it actually a dead end. Or curve across the intersection, add sidewalk, add a dirt section of parkway, and actually only allow, it would still allow 2-way traffic down Gottschalk, but nothing would come off of 183rd. But once again, we want to sit down, talk to the residents, see what their feelings are, because it's going to really affect them on that block, and how they get in and out of their homes and their driveways. The next item that's up for consideration is doing what we call a phase 1 engineering for Center Avenue, and that would be for a stoplight, for a permanent stoplight. Yeah, I don't have the intersection up there, but 183rd and Center, currently we have the delineators there now. Since those delineators have been put in 2020 to currently right now, we've only had 4 accidents. We've had some people hit the delineators, but as far as traffic accidents, there's only been 4. I'm correct on that, right, Chief?
Yes, one of the 4 was the delineators being struck.
And we've had a couple delineators being knocked down, but they're easy to replace, and it doesn't create any damage or anything like that. So we looked at possibly putting in a permanent stoplight there. One of the things we got to look at is how that would be phased in with the stoplight at Aberdeen, especially during school periods, so we don't create a large backup, and those stoplights would have to be interconnected. We do have interconnected signals throughout the town. 183rd Street to the west has interconnected traffic signals. Also, Street has interconnected traffic signals. So all of that would be looked at, see if it would be feasible, and then if it would be, we'd look for grants to fund that program. The last thing is that we like the board to consider is Park Avenue. One of the things that happens at Park Avenue on 183rd is currently it's posted that you can only make right-hand turns, but people do not abide by the traffic signs, and they continually make left-hand turns to go east underneath the viaduct. What we're proposing is to prevent those left-hand turns through delineators. And we showed, just, you can see on the drawing there, the red line is how the delineators would be placed. That would help prevent traffic from crossing 183rd and making that left-hand turn where you'd only be able to turn right off Park Avenue. And make it much safer for traffic coming underneath the viaduct and going westbound, and traffic going eastbound, not expecting anybody to turn out of Park Avenue. With that, in order to provide all that, the pilot program, some of the phase 1 engineering, the Gottschalk Avenue, we'd be looking in our capital improvement budget, which will be presented in the following weeks here to see as far as funding for these projects.
Thank you. Mrs. Thomas, comments that you may have received?
Yes. We received 14 comments. Some repeated the same issue that another person gave to us, so we reduced them down to 7. This is regarding Park Avenue heading southbound to 183rd Street. It would be helpful to have a sign at the Dixie Highway Park Avenue intersection advising that there is no left turn at 183rd Street. There are signs further along Park Avenue, but by that time, a driver has committed to that route. Having a clear advisory before a driver actually enters Park Avenue might alleviate some of the problem. I am a Homewood resident, a car owner, a parent, a cyclist, and a disability advocate. In all of these intersecting roles, I have worried about 183rd Street. 2 days a week, I bike my daughter to daycare just on the other side of 183rd. It's less than 3/4 of a mile away, but it takes me 15 minutes to bike there because I cannot safely cross 183rd with my daughter in tow at one of the minor intersections. I have to go a half a mile out of the way, ride on Regal with the cars speeding past me for a block or two, then turn onto 183rd, more speeding cars, before I turn into a neighborhood. If 183rd were re-envisioned, I might be able to stay on safe neighborhood streets before crossing 183rd to drop my daughter off. As a disability advocate, I always think about what a safe, accessible neighborhood might look like for someone in a wheelchair. While the sidewalks along 183rd are helpful, cars drive too fast down 183rd for anyone who uses the sidewalks regularly to feel safe. Take into account that wheelchair users are less visible to speeding cars that are turning, and visibility decreases with piled snow and full trees and bushes. My heart goes out to anyone, any wheelchair user in Homewood that has to ever cross that street. I hope we can reimagine 183rd to a road that is accessible for everyone. I drive, walk, bike, and run down 183rd. I want to feel safe while doing all of that. We love to walk and bike ride through Homewood. We frequently walk from our Southgate home to the library. Highland Avenue is the most convenient route. Crossing 183rd at Highland is challenging, to say the least. Also, 183rd is the major east-west street in Homewood and impossible to safely ride a bicycle on. The road diet option sounds great, but please, let's fix 183rd from Kedzie to Halsted. While the proposal to reduce lanes of traffic add a center turn lane and bike lanes is a good start. I support a plan that fixes all of 183rd, the full length of it traversing Homewood from Kedzie to Halsted. Difficulties and dangers to the community at large, including pedestrian and bicyclists traveling along 183rd and attempting to cross it, are elements of consideration for a comprehensive plan to fix all of 183rd Street. Taking a holistic view of what it means to be a transit-oriented community means taking all aspects of a plan to fix the entirety of 183rd Street. Fixing 183rd so that it works for and serves everybody can and should be this generation's legacy. We are writing as longtime residents of Homewood to express our support for the plan you will be considering this evening to reduce the number of lanes on 183rd Street and to protect the bicycle lanes. We understand that this plan is currently limited to the stretch between Regal and Morgan. We strongly encourage you to adopt this plan and to consider extending it all the way from Kedzie to Halsted. We enjoy riding our bikes around the village, although we do not always feel safe with traffic. 183rd Street is a major thoroughfare that divides Homewood, and navigating anywhere near it on a bicycle can be hazardous. We would gladly use our bikes instead of our car for more errands if it were easier to safely get around on a bicycle. In addition, we have observed that there are several areas on 183rd Street where the sidewalks are too narrow to permit an adult tricycle or wheelchair to safely pass. This is particularly true near the 183rd Street Viaduct. It is our hope that reducing the traffic lanes in favor of protected bicycle lanes will help cyclists and pedestrians, especially those with disabilities. We realize that asking for protected bike lanes the length of 183rd may seem like asking for the moon. It is our hope that you will approve the plan before this evening and revisit the idea of extending infrastructure improvements to the entire length of 183rd Street as soon as possible. I am glad that the Village of Homewood is addressing the 183rd Street issue. However, I think it should be all of 183rd Street from Halsted to Kedzie. There have been countless accidents, including the one where a young man lost his life near James Hart School. The sidewalks for most of 183rd are very narrow, and it is not safe to bike on the street. I just think it would benefit our community to have designated bike lanes along 183rd. I am a multi-decade homeowner in our Homewood community. As a veteran, retired educator, and person of faith, I am deeply concerned that the current vision for fixing 183rd Street, though well-meaning, misses the overall community need. I live in the 1800 block of Olive Road. I try often to walk, bicycle, and drive throughout the surrounding area. I find that 183rd Street prevents access to our community resources, residents, and their guests. Currently configured challenges most either by car, foot, bicycle, and walking. You take your life into your hands anytime you attempt to access, cross, drive, or walk, whether by car, bicycle, and foot. We have a wonderful downtown, but 183rd prevents encouraging access anywhere along it from Kedzie to Halsted. Whether sight lines for any direction along 183rd from most side streets to speeding through traffic, no established bike lanes, as well as little to no sidewalk for foot traffic along 183rd Street, it's currently a village handicap for almost all. This resident requested change to your current limited vision is an absolute necessity for the fulfillment of the potential quality of life for our entire community and visitors.
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas. Chief, could you talk about the enforcement efforts that are taking place currently?
Yes, as many of you may know, we have stepped up enforcement along 183rd predominantly, as well as some other streets that we have received numerous complaints on, specifically for speeding enforcement. And like I always say when we talk about these things, we get a lot of compliance when people have the visibility of a squad car out there where we see reduction in speeding, and then as soon as we aren't there, the traffic increases again and the speeding increases. our daily patrols address the speeding issue, these extra patrols address the speeding issues. We also have IDOT grants that we get to have patrols for seatbelt and speeding enforcement as well.
Okay, thank you. Audience comment?
Thanks. I'd like to also point out that, you know, this is the first phase. This isn't something that we're just going to look at stopping here. There's other things that we would like to do. There's some possible intersection improvements, but it's very high dollar. So this is stuff that could possibly be implemented right away. And that's why we want to do this pilot program. And if it works well, you know, this may be continued then farther to the west, you know, possibly up to Dixie Highway. But once again, we won't know this until we really prove it out. And that's the whole point of this pilot program, is to prove this out, to make sure that we're doing the right thing and see if it's really going to work. I'd hate to spend a lot of money restriping everything, changing the configuration, and find out it's a disaster. We don't want to do that. We want to make this workable for everybody, for traffic and for the residents that live there and for the residents that use the road, and how that affects the neighborhood too surrounding 183rd Street.
Thanks, John. One comment that was made with regard to signage on Dixie Highway, that there's no left turn on Park Avenue. I think that's essential that that be done if delineators are put in. Okay. Audience comments, I ask that they be succinct, and if something's been said before, please don't repeat it. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Yes, my name is Diane Wagner, and my concern is Blackstock Avenue. I live right on 183rd in Blackstock, between 183rd and Olive Road. And based on the proposal, you would make from 183rd to Olive Road one way going north, and then from Olive Road to Ridge, a two-way street. That doesn't, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, I've been there for 15 years, and the traffic off 183rd onto Gottschalk is very fast. It's like they're speeding to get to Ridge Road, or they're trying to get off of, before they get to Dixie Highway. So it's really not a good idea to have two different directions, because what's gonna happen, this is how I see it, some people are gonna come off of 183rd down Gottschalk, and it's one way, and then all of a sudden it's two ways. And you have cars on this side trying to turn down Olive Road. And that's kind of, it's not a good idea, not good. We have 16 kids between Olive and 183rd on Gottschalk. So it's 15 houses, and we have 16 kids. And they use Gottschalk as a thoroughway to get to 183rd Street. And that's what they do. I was talking to my neighbor, he's one of my neighbors, and we would prefer that you just block it off. The thing is, I thought about the emergency vehicles, but then the police station and the fire department comes off of Ridge Road, so that wouldn't be a problem off of, closing off 183rd. The school bus comes down Gottschalk, but it stops at Olive Road on the corner. There's no kids in my block, on that 182 block, that gets on the school bus and makes the middle of the street. So it's at the corner of Olive. So if they had to, reroute the school bus, it just goes down one street and goes to Olive. That's what we're picking up the kids in there.
That's what Mr. Schaefer is going to be talking to all of you residents over there to find out what's the preferred method, and then see if implementation can be done.
It doesn't make any sense to have two ways on a street like that,
Yeah.
because somebody's just gonna decide, well, I'm just gonna go down this one-way street, and they're gonna turn right on 183rd.
Ma'am,
And that's hysterical.
he's going to be having a meeting with the homeowners over there, so that you can discuss it in more detail. Save it all for
My
him.
first time is.
Okay. Yes, ma'am, you had your hand up?
Appreciate it.
Yes. Yes, go right ahead.
About 3 years ago, we had a really bad storm. 3 years ago, we had a really bad storm on 100, in Homewood. Lots of wind, rain, flooding. Heard a terrible, horrible boom. My whole house shook. Walls cracked, windows cracked, light fixtures fell. First thing that came to my mind was, it happened. A car was at my house. I'm sure that had to be what happened. Fortunately / unfortunately, it was 2 trees. But when you live on 183rd Street, that is a fear. My bedroom is on the ground floor, looking at 183rd. anytime if something were to jump a curb, there's my bed. So, I purchased this house 7 years ago, but I've lived in it my whole life. It was my grandmother's house. Back when I was little, I remember when it was a 2-laner, one each way. We had very nice wide sidewalk and we had a parkway. Having that parkway there gave a massive buffer to not only the pedestrians on the sidewalk, but to us houses. As it stands now, my daughter, who is supposed to be a walker, James Hart, there is no way I'm letting her walk on 183rd Street when the sidewalk is on the street. It's terrifying. In addition to that, you've got the utility poles in the sidewalk. So at some points, the sidewalk is so narrow, I am sure it's not ADA compliant, because if you're riding on a bike, your handlebars will not, if you're in the middle of the sidewalk, go through. You are forced to go in towards the street. Semi goes by, you know they're not going 30. The semi goes by going at least 50, you feel that. I won't walk my dog on that street. It's very scary having no buffer there. While I like the idea of bringing it down back to a 2-lane, I worry about the center turn lane. If it becomes a permanent striped thing, it's gonna be hard for me to get out of my driveway. I get out of that thing every single day. As it is, it's a struggle. How fast is this car going? If they're going 30, sure I can make it. If they're going 60, like they probably are, no, I'm probably not gonna be able to make it out. But now you're putting the center turn lane, which you know is gonna turn into a passing lane. Everyone's just gonna use that as a passing lane, just like people down at Center go the wrong way in traffic, still make that left-hand turn, or they're pulling illegal UVs. I've almost been in a head-on collision going to Hart with someone coming into traffic trying to make a left-hand turn because, oh, I can't get around, so I'll just go the wrong way, which is my fear about Hart. But if you were to make it so that the sidewalks were wider, maybe even make them extra wide, almost a 2-laner, to allow cyclists on one side, walkers on the other, and keep us back that parkway. So there's a buffer. It would also help our postal workers who, when they're trying to walk up and down that sidewalk in the winter, all that snow from the snowplows, it's going on the sidewalk. I can't get that snow up. It's all the heavy rock, ice. You cannot shovel that, you cannot snow blow that. So I'm watching my post worker walk in the street on 183rd Street in the winter. I'm watching the few kids that do walk to Hart, either walking in the yards, which I would prefer, or they're also in the street. Having no parkway, no buffer for that extra snow, or the cars to go flying by that are sucking me into the street a little bit, would be a massive help. It would make that street a little bit narrower, not give them that comfort of having this nice wide 4-lane highway feel, and make it a little more residential feeling that would make them want to slow down.
Thank you. Let's finish up this side. Yes, ma'am. Yes, please.
Okay, hi. Hillary Priest, I live in Scandia. I have a couple of concerns. It's very difficult to get in and out of our neighborhood. People go very, very, very fast down 183rd. That's no secret. I've been rear-ended by a hit-and-run driver on 183rd. Turning in and out of our neighborhood is pretty treacherous, but now that I have children who are ready for a little bit more independence, we're biking and I'm a runner, we're out on the streets a lot. It's very difficult to get out of our neighborhood on foot or on bikes safely. My issue is at the intersection on Western and 183rd and Governor's Highway and 183rd. The pedestrian walkway for kids that would be coming home north from the high school. It says no turn on red when pedestrians are present. You have the green and you push the button and they come zooming off of Governor's Highway. We've almost been hit. There are 5 of us in my family, so we all have bikes, so it's like a pretty big spectacle. If it was just one kid walking home from HF, it's dangerous. I also have an issue with the left turners coming from Waltz heading west on 183rd. They do not respect the crosswalk when when people have the walking green. And I've also been almost hit several times with my whole family or independently. So that's a major concern for me because we're kind of penned in Scandia, and it's very difficult to get out. Like, I love the small town feel of Homewood. My children love to bike with their friends, love to send them to downtown to buy some candy, send them into Flossmore to go to the candy store. But it's a really big worry sending them, not because they can't handle themselves, but because I'm afraid they're gonna get hit by a car. I would also echo the narrowness of the sidewalks. You know, I tell them, put your bike up, put your bike on the street side, and if something happens, just drop it and run into somebody's yard, you know. So that is another concern. But those two issues, those two intersections are a major concern. I think if maybe that no turn when pedestrians are present was just no turn on red, that could mitigate the problem. And also perhaps, I don't know if this is possible, for the intersection by Waltz, if the walking green pedestrian sign is on, then not a green light for the cars. I don't know if that's doable. I'm not a traffic person. I have noticed a greater police presence on 183rd. I've seen people being pulled over, so thank you. I really appreciate that. I've noticed the uptick. So.
And also, you forgot the sight line at Perth and 183rd. It's non-existent when you look down 183rd.
We go out Stewart
Yeah,
always.
you're better off.
And so but I'm also waiting. When I was rear-ended in October, I was closer to the Waltz intersection. But I'm just waiting for somebody to come crashing into me while I'm waiting to turn left into my neighborhood.
Sure. Jack?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk. I live in the 1700 block of 183rd Street. I've lived in Homewood for over 30 years. My family's been here for more than 50 years. I'm home a lot, so I see what goes on 183rd Street. I can hear what goes on 183rd Street. The last 4 years have been amazing. From the drag racing, that is a near daily event on 183rd Street. And I know the cars, and I can hear them coming from blocks away. To the motorcycle racing, to the guy in the purple mini bike or whatever it is, doing the wheelie down 183rd Street. The changes that I've witnessed are quite something. I'm glad you're addressing this, because this is a pretty significant issue. My concern is I'm concerned about the people who are walking down the street as I see people coming at them at 50 miles an hour. I've witnessed the aftermath of cars losing control. My neighbor's house's tree got hit by a young man who was going much too fast for the issues. I do like John's idea and the idea of 183rd Street white. I lived there back when 183rd Street was 2 lanes. So I remember what that was like. It's a good idea if it works. The thing that I see is backups on 183rd Street at certain times of the day. I can see traffic backing up in both directions, morning and evening. During midday, I stood out there looking down the street, and people probably thought I was nuts. What's this guy doing staring down the street? I'm trying to visualize it being 2 lanes. And yeah, I can see that happening with the bike lane, which is a great idea. I think it will slow down traffic at certain times of the day when it's congested. Other than that, I think it's gonna pick up again during the midday time. My concern about the diet temporarily is I can see people heading westbound, coming past Regal in 1 lane, breaking into 2 lanes, and you got your drag race going from all the way back down. So that might be something to watch those. It might take some extra revenue.
Jack, could you tell the chief any specific times when you observe that?
Oh, I've told
This-
this.
Okay.
Share that with you right now.
Okay, please do.
Thank you.
Sure, go right ahead.
Hi, I'm Angela Thomas. So I live on 183rd Street. And so, I have to turn left into my driveway when I come home from work. And then in the mornings, I have to turn left, off of 183rd Street to get to daycare. So I'm making a lot of left turns on 183rd Street. I love the idea of the center turn lane because I've been almost rear-ended about a million bazillion times since we bought our house in 2020. My husband grew up in that house, so he's watched it go from the 1 lane to the 2 lanes. Like, it's crazy, like, how much it has changed for him. But I do not turn on my blinker or even slow down until I look in my mirror to see who's behind me and how close are they. Because they go way, way, way fast. It's really, really scary. So I love the idea of the center turn lane. I'm super concerned that if you do this 2-week trial, you're not getting good data because you're only doing it from Regal to Morgan. And everybody knows that the cops are either in the temple parking lot or the church parking lot. And as soon as they pass the church, they start speeding up again. And then they make that U-turn at center, and that has not gotten better at all. Please don't use the temple parking lot. I love that you guys are there.
They're the only people at the temple right now.
I love it. I live right next to it. That's my parking lot. But it's really, really dangerous. So I really want to see a good trial. And if you already have that spot that they're slowing down, and it's very, very dangerous. I also want to point out that we are walkers, we are bikers, we work in town, we live in town, daycare's in town, and I like to walk to those places. Garbage day, I can't use the sidewalks with my stroller because the garbage cans are on the sidewalk, and I cannot push my stroller in the street. The bike trailer does not fit on the sidewalk when I turn from 183rd onto Regal because there is a pole there. So the sidewalk is not wide enough for a bike and a trailer. Again, very dangerous. If there were bike lanes on 183rd Street, we would go everywhere on 183rd Street. Right now, we're trying to like zigzag through the neighborhoods. It takes a lot of extra work, a lot of extra time. I'm concerned for when my daughter does start to ride her own bike and is not in the trailer, to not have a sidewalk big enough for her or a bike lane. That's gonna be a whole nother issue because I can't have her walking the bike a block and a half to get to a safe area to like. But I think that the center turn lane is gonna be a great idea. The fact that there's going to be more traffic in the morning and the evening does not bother me. I don't care if there is some traffic. If anything, they're not speeding. And I think that people are going to be getting in and out of their houses. The only other point I want to make is getting left out of my driveway. I don't do that because I don't want to go across 2 lanes and then turn left into the further lane. I think that if that center turn lane was there, I would only have to cross 1 lane, pause and wait in the center turn lane, and then merge into the rest of the traffic. And that sounds safer as well.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
First, good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Schwartz.
Thank you.
You want me to do this?
So we can hear you better.
So I was actually hoping to ask a couple of questions, which I may not have been able to digest from the proposal or from the presentation. The first is, why was the traffic study convened to only be from Halsted to Park rather than the entire length of the road? So that's the first question. I'm happy to have that answered or go through all of my questions and then allow you.
Go right ahead.
And then the second question was, part of the pilot program you mentioned was to study the traffic flow and the traffic patterns. Returning to my question, sort of my first point, Burns and McDonald did a fairly comprehensive assessment of the flow of traffic, the volume of cars, time of day of cars, as well as the estimation of the increase of that volume over the next 30 years. So what are the metrics that you're hoping to learn from that study? And what are the benchmarks that you have set or will be setting to compare to the value of a life? Just wondering.
I'm not comparing anything to the value of a life. That's not what we do. But like anything else, you know, sometimes things on paper look great until you actually implement them. And that's the purpose of this. Right on paper, there's studies on it, there's everything else, there's federal things on road diets and everything else. It may work in one community, but it may not work in another community just because of traffic flows and schools and activities and everything else. So the reason for this road diet as a pilot is to see what actually works and to see if we have problems. Somebody mentioned about having possibly where people are going to use that center lane as a passing lane or to get around. Well, we've thought about that also. We want to see if that starts to happen, because then we may in turn segment that left turn lane off, so it's not just a straight through lane. It'd be where we, during this pilot program, we'd set some barrels closing it off, so you just can't make a through, it wouldn't be a through lane. It would be segmented off. And if that really works, then when we do the striping and everything else, we have to look to see how we're gonna segment that off to prevent that being a through lane, so somebody can't use it as a passing lane. So that's some of the things that we wanna look at. I mean, the way people drive and everything else is gonna prove out what works and what doesn't work. Like I said, we may find out that this is not the answer yet, but we're trying to provide an answer and come up with a good permanent solution.
So it sounds like what you did is you looked at the Burns and McDonald proposal, you took one avenue that you thought was best, and that's what you're gonna pilot out. So is there a ranking of the secondary proposals, whether it's the roundabout aspect or the tilted intersection aspect that will be next? Or is it a multiple combination? I'm just trying to figure out, so first, I'm still hoping for an answer to that first question about how it was determined to just look from Park to Halsted. And then second, again, if you can return to what metrics you're looking for specifically. So you said you used the center lane example. Is there a number? We're looking for less than 10 people passing from the center lane during the rush hour periods, and less than 50 during the non-rush hour periods, because obviously the non-rush hour periods are 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., 7 p.m. till 6 a.m. Is there a benchmark indicator that's already set up? Or is it just going to be a wait and see approach and then moving down through various different options?
It's gonna be an observation for one. Is there gonna be actual numbers that we're gonna say, we're only gonna allow this to happen 10 times or 5 times, whatever? No, we're gonna take the results and look at it, and we're gonna sit down with Burns and McDonald, the engineers, the traffic engineers, and go over it and come up through their traffic people. Do we feel that this is still an optimize this situation? Why did we want to do this at first? Because this is something that's fairly easily to implement, and it may solve a lot of the issues. One of the main issues the reason we started this traffic study was because of the residents that wanted something done in that area. And we came to the call. The residents wanted us to do something. So we came out and said, yes, we are going to look at it. We're going to try and come up with some things. And once again, this is not the only phase we're doing. We're looking at possible other phases. The other phases involve a lot more things to do with traffic signals, timing, possibly replacing, reconfiguring intersections, which takes a lot more study time and a lot more funding to do that and to come up with the right plan that's going to work. But these are options that possibly could be implemented right away. So instead of waiting for everything to be done, let's see if we can implement something now to make things better now. And if this works in this stretch, like I said before, we'll look to possibly continue it from Regal down to Dixie. Now, some of the reasons why we picked this section, this is one of the heaviest residential areas. And that's why we looked at that, because it's the most concern to the residents that we heard. It's they live on that street. It's more, it's heavily traveled. So that's why we took that section, and why we stop it at Park. Yes, there are residents that live west of that, but it's not as heavily populated. And some of those homes sit farther back. The sidewalks are a little wider. We're looking at all of it. It's just that we have to take it in sections. We can't bite off, everything at once. We have to look at it and kind of phase it in, and that's our goal.
And just thank you for that. Final comment. I think it would be great if in future meetings, I don't know if someone is here, but if one of the engineers from Burns and McDonald would also attend a meeting, if anyone has specifically pointed engineering questions about the recommendations that are made, and I appreciate your presentation, but obviously, as they are the experts that created the proposal, they have the most hands-on access to the knowledge recommendation. So I think that would be particularly beneficial.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Rachel Schwartz. I'm a business owner in the community, lived here 20 years. A lot of the points that I had to make are redundant. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. yes, continuing this study all the way down to governors, I think is important at looking at. We have high schoolers trying to get to school. My son rode his bike for a year on the sidewalk of 183rd. It's not safe to be out there. People in this community should not have to drive a car to get to their job. It needs to be accessible to all. So that is a big piece for me and for other people in the community, that 183rd is how we get around this town, right? This is the biggest street, the big thoroughfare. It should be accessible and usable for all of us. I'm a cyclist. I'd love to continue cycling, but I cycle as a fitness person, not as a person who lives here, because I can't get across town. I shouldn't, because I don't want to drive my car, have to drive so far out of my way just to be safe, to not get murdered by a car. So more accessibility that way for our children getting to school, but also just as the world moves forward and we're trying to use less gasoline and be more sustainable, this should be a cycling and walking and bike, community, right? Like, we're trying to reduce traffic down. So yes, doing that, bringing that down in these certain areas is important, but all the way through our town. We want to be able to go everywhere in this town. We like to talk about how this is a great family community. Commuters want to live here, bring your children. This is the piece that's missing, is getting around town.
Thank you. Let's have one more comment. Yes, ma'am, on Park Avenue. Go right ahead. I know you.
You know me.
Yeah, Park Avenue. Can we address your concerns?
If you're going east on 183rd, you want to make a left-hand turn onto Park, just before the viaduct, are you proposing changes to that?
There'll be an actual turn lane that'll be designated for you to make that left-hand turn on the park going north.
I'm glad for that, because we have very limited means of getting out of that area.
John, could you put up that slide and
Sure.
perhaps show that one again and point it out to her? I know exactly where you live. Yes.
This is scary.
Yeah, so right there, that's gonna be that turn lane that you'll be able to then turn right,
Okay,
right there
so the
on the
current
park.
turn lane is going to stay there?
Yes, and except these, where the red line is, these will be actually markers that will stick up. So you'll definitely know where that turn lane is. It'll be a designated turn lane.
In other words, it'll be a shorter distance to get into that turn lane.
No, it'll be the same. It's just for the diagram, it may look a little shorter, but it'll be the same as it is now.
Are people gonna be able to U-turn it like they are at, Central?
Let's go on. There's some other questions. Is there something new, something that hasn't been said before? Yes, sir.
I'm Bob Griffith. I've lived in Homewood for about 30 years on Center Avenue in Churchill. First, Mr. Schaefer, I'm late, but I want to thank the public works for all the snow plowing this year. Great.
Thank you.
I want to think back when I moved here 30 years ago and what Halsted Street was like. It's been boldly transformed. It's not what it was many years ago. And I want to maybe put that vision in your heads for what that 183rd could be, boldly transforming it. I understand we'll be doing incremental studies, and I appreciate that. You don't want to commit up hundreds of thousands of dollars on a hope it works kind of thing. But I know you're talking about analyzing traffic flow for cars, but I also hope to prioritize how people are living on the street, walking on the street, and cycling on the street, not just traffic counts going through. Having lived overseas, like in Holland and other places, they boldly transform their streets so that it is not car-centric. And I think that's what I would hope for, that it, not just a highway through Homewood, but a way to travel in Homewood and walk in Homewood, and bike in Homewood, move your baby carriages around. So think boldly, not just, and I understand incrementally, but think boldly where we could be in 5-10 years from now.
I think the comments this evening are pretty much similar. Yes.
Heather Kurtz, I one time lived on Center, I'm in Sacramento, so I appreciate Park Avenue. But when you're doing this study, I am so concerned about 187 and Ridge Road being just a mess, where people are cutting that way to avoid 183rd. I'm just really concerned about it. When I walk from Sacramento, which is what I had me, to Isaac Walton, and both streets are a mess. So when you're looking at this 183rd Street section, I would like to see cars on every block. Honestly, on the other streets where people are gonna cut over, because that's what they're gonna do. You're gonna be 187 to Dixie and cutting over.
And we have discussed that as we look at this plan.
So that's just my concern, but I do appreciate Park Avenue because I'm always there about 5 minutes before I cross.
Okay, one last comment. Yes, ma'am.
I live on 183rd, my family's been there for over 50 years, back when it was 2 lanes, we walked everywhere. Every night, I walk about 10 to midnight with my dog over to Irwin, over the Dairy Queen back around downtown. It's a speedway in the middle of the night. It might only be 10 cars versus 200, but they are flying over the hill from the light at Dixie. It's like Dukes of Hazzard, kind of saying, come over, and they come flying through. And a lot of them are turning on the Highland, or they're turning further up. So I don't know what's going on those streets, but they're flying to bypass before they get down to Riga. So I think this is a great plan for a little bit further east. My house has been hit twice, and I'm not that old. And I may look it, but I'm not that old. Significant damage. My neighbor's house has been hit twice. Car bounced off their house, hit our house. The light posts on a totally different instance, been taken out. A big iron planted, concreted in light post, taken off, and they just kept going. My other neighbor to the east, Joe Copeland, rest in peace, was hit on 183rd, and I'm not sure what that tree is. There's down a sign that says don't turn, don't cross here. But his family got hurt. His family and our family, that's huge. That was a big deal. And now the one that got hit further down by Center, they're flying. It's not a little, and they're flying all the time. My neighbor on the west, they took out the corner of the house. If that couple had been sitting there watching TV with a TV by the front window, then those 2 people would have been killed. The corner of the house was taken off by the car, then hit mine, took off the porch, and tried to keep going. That was during the day. That wasn't at night. That was after a few beers. Like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Some of it's when that snow and ice on that curve is real low, and with the plows and stuff, I can see how if you look away for a second, you just kind of veer off and hit it. My comment is, you talked about some of the IDOT money for the speed enforcement and the seatbelt checks. How many times have you done that actually on 183rd from the viaduct down the center? Not on Regal, not on Dixie, but actually on 183rd. Because I haven't seen it. That's my question.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the board has heard you. Do you have anything new, sir?
Primarily just speaking of extending it, because crossing that viaduct by bike is terrifying. But other than that, seconding what everyone else said, particularly private demonstration performance, said it really well, so thank you.
Thank you. Board comments, we've listened to you, and I think we're all in agreement. Trustee Purcell.
First, thank you for all this work, because I know it's been a long time, and you guys are not even halfway through. Thank you for everything you're putting into it, and thank you guys for everything that you are recommending too. I heard a lot of really good things, and especially, I live in the Southgate area, and my son is 16, and I get afraid when he walks Highland over to Irwin, because even at that age, he might be responsible, but the people driving are. And we don't like him walking up and down 183rd either, because again, just like you all have said, the sidewalks are narrow and there's no parkway. It makes me think of, there's a stretch of 167th between 80th Avenue and I think Harlem, that, prior to that, it's a pretty major thoroughfare, 4 lanes, and it goes down to 4 lanes through residential. It's kind of curvy. There's stop signs, there's parkways, there's wider sidewalks. It's nothing but residential through that. And I travel that a lot. And I think that really works. I really like that idea of looking at the sidewalks and looking at the parkways, and the turn lane I think would be huge. But you guys have all had a lot of really great suggestions and recommendations. And I know that you guys, the Public Works and and everybody's gonna be looking into it and getting back to us, but I think that what you're doing right now with implementing these, let's try this first, it's the right way to do it, you know, instead of just committing to something big, so thank you for all that.
Steve Ballou.
Thank you to John and the team, and just thanks to the residents for expressing your concerns. We are also residents. I have a young family as well, so a lot of my concerns are reflected in things that have been said tonight, so hopefully we can come to a conclusion that works.
Trustee Washington.
I agree with everything that's been said, and I'm just glad that there will be an additional time when the residents will be able to meet with you to have their concerns addressed before we move forward with anything permanent. So, thank you.
Trustee Harris Jones.
John, thank you for all of your information that you gave to the residents, and I want to thank all the residents for coming out today and taking time out of your busy schedule to voice your opinion. We really appreciate it, and we're going to take all of your concerns into consideration.
Trustee Heiferman.
The letters that were received and virtually every comment made tonight, there's very little that I don't absolutely agree with and have experienced myself. There's basically four things that you're proposing, and one by one. The road diet plan, I think it's great, and especially to do it as a pilot. But I think the one thing that's missing in the description is, and even tonight when you said maybe it could go all the way to Dixie Highway, I think it really should be said, you know, and have some way to determine success of the pilot that is really understandable. And I'm sure every careful consideration will be, you know, made regarding it. But I think it really should be the plan all the way down 183rd Street if it works. You know, we're not committing to anything, but the attitude should be a positive attitude that this is a, you know, perhaps something that would be a big solution. I can't imagine from Governors to Kedzie, you know, as I drive it, why it couldn't be a reality with the road diet concept. Really, you know, everywhere should be considered eventually. But the pilot's great. I'm excited about it. I'm concerned that it's not going far enough east, because at Illinois Street in Glenwood, it's going to become a weird thing when it ends at Morgan, and you only have like 3 houses until people have to make a turn onto Illinois or from Illinois onto 183rd.
And let me just quick comment on that. Part of that is we have to be able to funnel traffic back out and be able to funnel traffic in to make that transition. So that's it may not stop exactly at Morgan. It may,
if it's possible,
adjust,
to consider
yes.
going a couple of houses down. It would make a big difference. But I love the concept of a road diet, and I'm going to stick with that for a moment. Where I live, which is sort of by the post office, I'm a cyclist. I think I'm a pretty experienced cyclist. I'm a relatively confident cyclist, but I can't ride my bike to Waltz. And I won't. It's not worth it. I trust myself, but I definitely don't trust the drivers. I agree with all of the comments that we should be thinking bold, and that is the missing link between what we think we are and what we really could be. You know, being a real cycling community and a community that, by the way, that I still believe we should have an advisory group, you know, of citizens that what their mission is to advocate for pedestrians and cyclists. I'm sorry, I'm rambling here. Let's go to the phase 1 engineering for Center Street. Great. I don't quite understand how a light at Center would work, being so close to the light at Aberdeen. Maybe there's a better solution for Aberdeen than a light, and that light should be at Center, but I'm sure that'll be part of the study. The Park Avenue delineators, it's great. I'm anxious to see it happen. Gottschalk, I really don't quite get it all. This, I really didn't see it until the last couple of days. So I really haven't been able to talk to people on Gottschalk. It seems to me like it's a response to the issue of the horrible fence on the northeast corner of Gottschalk and 183rd. That fence that blinds drivers. And you know I've brought it up for years, and I think that that should be the first solution.
Well, part of that is I don't believe legally I can have that fence removed. I'm just, let me finish.
I know.
I don't believe legally I can do that. But we looked at that, and part of the issue is, there's been accidents there, that's why we looked at Gottschalk. There's been a fatality there. And if you're there and you're looking to the east, there's a hill, and what's happening is cars are coming up over that hill, and all of a sudden, there could be, a car trying to pull out, and that's one of the issues. So if we eliminate that traffic from turning out onto 183rd, that would help.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not jumping
right.
against
And I just
either of
trying
the
to,
proposals.
you asked, why, what was the reason for that? Well, we looked at accidents and what's happened there, and that's what we're trying to help solve that problem.
And I agree, it's been a long time problem, and there's gotta be a solution, but I can't make a good comment on it, because I really haven't really considered the blocking of it and all. Other than that, again, let's not be afraid to be bold with it. This is our opportunity to really make the community better.
Trustee Roman?
I agree with everything that has been said. All of the thank you to the staff and to all of you for all of your comments. Thank you so much for coming, and I agree with all of the trustees that I agree with all of your comments. We all live here. I have 3 children, 5 and under, so all of this is very concerning to me. Also, I have a few questions, actually 2 questions. There was a lot of talk about the sidewalks and the ADA compliance, and that is something that's very near and dear to my heart. But there was recently the sidewalks, the curbs at the entrance were all widened, and that was from a grant. Is there anything else, grant money, that we can work on sidewalks as well? Because I mean, this is all great, everything. I think that I'm interested to see what happens with the pilot and everything, but what about the sidewalks? Is there anything there?
Well, one is it depends on where those sidewalks that you're talking about are located. Some are narrower, and that's because we only have so much right of way. I can't put a wider sidewalk in because it's no longer village property. It belongs to the homeowner. So that's one of the issues in certain areas. Grant-wise, we're always looking for grants. We're looking for grants for 183rd Street for some of this study work and everything else. We've got multiple grants that we're trying, federal grants, state grants. We're looking at Safe Route to School grants, anything that we can try to get money to help move some of this stuff along and possibly look at some of the more costly things that we could do to 183rd. So we are constantly looking at that.
Okay, I hope we can implement some of that in the near future too, for our next phase. And then my other question is, with the traffic study, with the diet plan, has there been any talk about adding traffic counts to Ridge and 187th while that pilot is going on, so that it's all, okay?
Right, we'll do a traffic count before we do the pilot, so we have a baseline again. And then we'll do a traffic count the same time as the pilot's going on.
Okay, on those streets as well?
Yes.
Okay, great. I have no other questions. Thank you for everything.
Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for being here this evening. Nothing is easy, but this is a step in the right direction. With that being said, may I have a motion to direct Public Works to implement the 4 phases that they have proposed?
Second?
Been motion made by Trustee Purcell, seconded by Trustee Roman. Roll call, please.
Trustee Purcell. Aye. Trustee Baloo. Aye. Trustee Washington. Aye. Trustee Harris Jones. Aye. Trustee Heiferman.
Aye.
Trustee Roman.
Aye.
Motion is approved. General Board discussion. Trustee Purcell.
I've got nothing else.
Trustee Baloo. Trustee Washington.
Nothing.
Trustee Harris Jones.
Nothing for me.
Trustee Heiferman.
Said nothing.
Trustee Roman.
Nothing.
With that, may I have a motion to enter into executive session to discuss the purchase or lease of real property? May I have such a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Been moved by Trustee Purcell, seconded by Trustee Washington. Roll call, please.
Trustee Purcell. Aye. Trustee Baloo. Aye. Trustee Washington. Aye. Trustee Harris Jones. Aye. Trustee Heiferman. Trustee Roman.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Thank you all for being here. We'll take a short recess.
Can I take a